swap? Can I have the pipeline here?
Well, when I read it, it just seemed
Great.
like
Good.
It's probably more fitting for you.
you want to stop and say hi.
Don't be rushing me.
I mean, take your time. Good evening.
Thank you. Thought it was hating it.
Good evening. I call this meeting to order.
Good evening.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Thomas, roll call, please.
Dr. Bellamy,
Present.
Ms. Hill,
Here.
Ms. Walker,
Present.
Mr. Signer,
Here.
Ms. Galvin.
Here.
Are there any announcements?
I have an announcement. Distracted by Mr. Foley and Ms. Carpenter. I have a couple of announcements, Mayor Walker, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
One from Mrs. Maxine Holland. Proud to announce on the 19th annual, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great evening. 19th annual Juneteenth celebration. It's going to be called The Reverence. It is a 2-day celebration kicking off on Friday, June 14th to honor the local ancestors. And then on Saturday, June 15th, there's a party on the lawn. Now, for those who are not aware, Juneteenth, dating back to 1865, is a blend of June and 19th. Is how you get Juneteenth, is the oldest known celebration of the ending of slavery in the United States. It grew out of a desire to remember the struggle that black people waged to free themselves and save the Union. Now, all of this will be taking place at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. That's at 233 4th Street Northwest, again, on the weekend of June 14th and 15th. And then, if you need more information, there's flyers over there. Miss Cherry and a couple others have some over there. And then also, we really want to get everybody involved. Saturday, June 29th, we're going to have a 4-miler, which is going to be called Run These Streets. It'll be kicking off at 8 a.m. at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. Now, this 4-miler is a little different from others. We're going to be running through traditional African American staples in the community as well as neighborhoods. So we'll be running past the Daughters of Zion Cemetery. You'll be going through 4 of the 6 public housing sites. You'll be going through the first African American school, the Jefferson School, and a litany of other different neighborhoods. So please feel free to register. You can look online at wecode2cville.com/run these streets. You'll see the registration there. There's flyers up here for everybody. All proceeds will go to the digital skills training class for felons that WeCode2 puts on. And again, we hope you all can come out. It's a run/walk. So if you can't run, we are encouraging folks to walk, as Mayor Walker has made sure that I say. We have a running group that goes out every Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6:30 a.m. at the Jefferson School. So feel free to join us. My man Peter, I thought I saw Peter Krebs in here earlier. Peter ran with us this morning. He smoked us, but it's all good. So there's a run and walk, okay? So if you can't run the 4 miles, you can walk through the neighborhoods with us, but it's just something good for us to all get fit. Mayor Walker has her 4-miler coming up, so we need the ladies to get out there soon. She's going to be coming and running with us soon, right? Yes. All my colleagues on council are down. I got confirmation earlier. Heather can't wait. Mike said he's gonna put the knee pads on. Signer, he's with it. Kathy, she's gonna walk, bike, triathlon, all of that. Mr. Blair's coming. Miss Thomas is coming. Maybe. All right. Well, so we hope to see you there. Well, let's have some fun. June 29th at 8 o'clock at the Jefferson School. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
All right, we have an announcement from the voter registrar's office. Voters who still need to register to vote or update their information before the June 11th primary have until Monday, May 20th to do so. A voter registered at his or her current address does not need to re-register. 17-year-olds who will turn 18 by November 5th may vote in the primary if they meet the May 20th registration deadline. Applications must be received in the voter's registration office or at DMV by 5 p.m. on May 20th or postmarked by May 20th. If you have a Virginia driver's license or DMV issued ID, applications can be completed and submitted online at votevirginia.gov before midnight on May 20th. Paper voter registration applications are available in the voter registration office, City Hall lobby, DMV, and all local libraries, or can be printed from vote.virginia.gov. Oh, and there's one part. Virginia does not have a party registration, and any qualified voter may vote in a primary. This primary will decide for this year the Democratic primaries nominees for the November election for 3 seats on City Council and 1 seat in the House of Delegates.
So while Councilor Bellamy has his Run These Streets, the second annual Get Your Healthy On with Mayor Walker information will be coming out in the next 2 weeks. Last year, we had over 50 women sign up. I partner with the Women's 4 Miler, and we do the training with the training program. And this year, we will have at least one trainer I have confirmed, but 2 trainers who will do additional trainings during the week. So once I finish working those details out, so it will begin the end of May, and the official Women's 4 Miler training program starts on June 15th, and race day will be August 31st this year for the Women's 4 Miler race. And so look out for that information, and please join us.
I'm coming.
That's what it was. Okay. So the 2019 My Helpless Award winners, the 5th annual Alexand My Helpless contest winners have been chosen. The contest is a thinking, writing, reading activity for students in K through 12 in Charlottesville and surrounding counties. Students share their thoughts on the importance of helping others and 5 things they have or can do to help someone. This year, winners are Denise Lopez Saucedo, 1st grader at Greenbrier Elementary School, Delilah Becker, 5th grader at the Village School, Isaac Gerald, a 6th grader at Burley Middle School, and Hime Isabel Guerrero, a 9th grader at Almar High School. The winners will be awarded a cash prize at a reception on Thursday, May 9th at 6:30 p.m. at Carver Recreation Center. The winners, guests, media, sponsors are invited. Not general public. Sponsors, the Charlottesville Area Transit, Johnny Bates, Dave Chapman, Sheriff James Brown, JFL Funeral Service, Pace Real Estate Associates, LLC Lynn Fox, and our partners with NBC 29. Any other announcements?
Proclamations.
Okay.
Are we ready for the proclamations?
Yeah. You want to start?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're now into the proclamations. So May is Bike Month, and whereas bicycling is a healthy, clean, efficient, and affordable mode of transportation and recreation used by thousands of citizens and residents of all ages throughout our great Commonwealth and city, whereas commuting by bicycle helps alleviate traffic congestion and reduce pollution associated with vehicular travel and offers significant mental and physical health benefits to cyclists themselves, and whereas our Commonwealth is the host to many cycling events, including competitive races, sightseeing tours, charitable fundraisers, and recreational rides, which in total create a very real economic impact, and whereas Charlottesville has been named a silver-level bicycle-friendly community by the League of American Cyclists, and in the effort to improve upon this designation, we'll continue to recognize the importance of cycling in urban and community planning and development. And whereas Bike Month allows bicyclists to increase awareness of their mode, emphasizing proper safety precautions for bicyclists and motorists while sharing our roadways, and to promote the benefits of bicycling through organized activities such as Bike to School Day and Bike to Work Day. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of City Council hereby recognize the month of May 2019 as National Bike Month, encourage all who support bicycling to participate in the events planned, and urge all road users to share the road safely. Signed and sealed this 6th day of May 2019. This is the mayor.
Is there someone
Is
here
there someone to
accept?
receive the proclamation?
Come on, Carl.
Great.
All right.
Oh, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Another proclamation. This is for Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas mental illnesses are real and prevalent in our nation, and half of us will have a mental health diagnosis at some point in our lives, and whereas everyone experiences times of difficulty and stress in their lives and should feel comfortable in seeking help and support to manage these times, and whereas engaging in prevention, early identification, and early intervention are as effective at reducing the burden of mental illnesses as they are at reducing the burden of other chronic health conditions, and whereas there is a strong body of research that identifies behavioral health risks and supports specific tools that people can use to protect their health and well-being, and whereas with effective treatment, all individuals with mental illnesses, even serious mental illnesses, can make progress toward recovery and lead full productive lives. And whereas jails and prisons have often become the default places of custodial care for even nonviolent people with serious mental illnesses, and whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen has a responsibility to promote mental health and well-being for all. Now therefore, Nakia Walker, Mayor of the City of Charlottesville, does hereby proclaim May 2019 as Mental Health Month in the City of Charlottesville. And as mayor, she calls upon the citizens, government agencies, private and public institutions, businesses, and schools in Charlottesville to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health and the steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health. And I thought I would, quick privilege, personal point, my sister Mira is the Deputy Commissioner at the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services and works very hard on this set of issues in Virginia on a daily basis. I'm really proud of the work that she's done. And some people in the city know her. So, Mayor Walker, is anybody here to receive this? On behalf of the, okay.
Let's still give it up for Mental Health Awareness Month.
And Ms. Myra Anderson, but she is ill and could make it tonight, and so we would have been presenting it to her.
All right, we also have a proclamation for Kids to Parks Day. Whereas May 18th, 2019 is the 9th Kids to Parks Day organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the 3rd Saturday in May. And whereas Kids to Park Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks, public lands, and waters. And whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle to combat issues of childhood obesity, diabetes, hypertension, hypercholesterolemia. That's a long one for me. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. And now therefore, Mayor Nakia Walker does hereby proclaim on May 18th, 2019 as Kids to Park Day, signed and sealed on the 6th day of May. Is there anyone for that here today?
Is there anyone here to
He
accept
said
the
he wants it.
proclamation?
Let him come get it. You want to come get it? You raise your hand. All right, let's give him a round of applause. right, and last but not least, the final proclamation of the night. We do have someone to get this one, Dr. Andrea Douglas from the Jefferson School. If she could come up, please. Thank you, Dr. Douglas. Y'all clapping. Y'all don't even know what the proclamation is yet. Y'all just clapping. Y'all clapping for Andrea. Okay. Man, it's a good happy crowd tonight. So this proclamation is for Queen Charlotte Day. Whereas Queen Charlotte was born Sophia Charlotte on May 19, 1744 in Mecklenburg-Strelitz, Germany, to Duke Charles Louis Frederick and Princess Elizabeth Albertine of Saxe-Holzburgen. I think she died on November 17, 1818. Whereas Queen Charlotte married King George III of the United Kingdom on September 8, 1761, making her Queen of the United Kingdom as well as the Electress of Hanover in the Holy Roman Empire. Whereas Queen Charlotte was the mother of 15 children and is the ancestor of all the current royal houses of Europe. Whereas Queen Charlotte was a patroness of the arts and amateur botanist, doctorate for nothing, botanist and dedicated philanthropist for orphanages and hospitals for expectant mothers. Whereas the city of Charlottesville, Virginia was founded in 1762 and named in honor of Queen Charlotte, consort of Great Britain's King George III. Now, therefore, our wonderful mayor, Nakiah Walker, and the city council of the city of Charlottesville, Virginia, will recognize May 19th as Queen Charlotte Day, acknowledging her historical connection to the founding of the city of Charlottesville and for her service to humanity. This day is a very special one, as Queen Charlotte, you can tell by her pigmentation, is widely known as a black woman. In our city, named after her, means a great deal. Mrs. Peck, who isn't here, Miss Peck isn't here. She puts on a wonderful rendition every year celebrating Queen Charlotte's Day. But we're going to have our local historian, one of them, in which Dr. Douglas accept this proclamation on her behalf. So now you all can clap for Dr. Douglas. Running like you ready for run these streets, Dr. Douglas.
All right, next we have the consent agenda. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on an item that's on the consent agenda? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Peter Krebs, 1022 Tufton Avenue, the Belmont neighborhood. I have the honor to be on the CDBG Priority Neighborhood Task Force, and I know the CDBG shows up a couple of times on the agenda, sometimes on the main agenda, sometimes the consent agenda. But I think my matter's on the consent agenda, where you guys are moving around funds just a little bit between Belmont, Carlton, and Ridge Street. And that's the result of some very creative thinking by Tiara and the NDS staff. I want to thank her and the rest of the staff for their creativity and their flexibility. That needs to happen because the funds are slated to be used for a sidewalk on Franklin Street, which is a big, pretty dangerous street. And this is a neighborhood with tons of kids and tons of change happening. So I think it's good that you guys are paying attention to this important neighborhood and really prioritizing it. And I just want to say thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the consent agenda? Ms. Thomas, could you read the consent agenda, please?
Consent Agenda A, minutes, March 18, 2019 regular meeting, April 15, 2019 regular meeting. B, appropriation, FM Global Fire Prevention Grant, $3,268, second of two readings. C, appropriation, 2019 to 2020 Community Development Block Grant Funding, $395,052.82, first of two readings. D, appropriation, 2019 to 2020 Home Investment Partnership Funding, $120,382.75, first of two readings. E, appropriation, amendment to Community Development Block Grant Account, reprogramming of funds for FY 2019 to 2020, $1,900.82, first of two readings. F, appropriation, Local Emergency Management Performance Grant, LEMPG, $7,500, first of two readings. G, appropriation, funding requirements for SAP integration for the Faster Fleet Management Software, $48,000, first of two readings. H, ordinance, amend Charlottesville City Code, Section 15-131 for motor vehicle and traffic, second of two readings. I, resolution, alleys and paper streets closing policy, second of two readings.
Okay. And so I would like to pull C and D and vote on them. Do we have to wait till the end of the agenda, or can we vote on them separately after the public hearing?
Well, I think you can wait and vote on them separately.
Okay. Right after we vote.
Right after you vote on the consent agenda right now. Is that
Okay.
what your preference to?
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
So
All
I'll
right.
make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda without items C and D.
Second that.
All right. Are there any further questions or comment? All right. Please vote. All right.
And I move that we, sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna,
And then, yes, if you want to just take them C now and move in second and then have a vote on that.
make a motion for item C, 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant Funding for $395,000, $395,052.82.
Okay.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right. And I've had this conversation with some of you, but I'm pulling the items. It's the same thinking process that I'm having about the efforts with the ABRT and the revamp, who's sitting on committees, deciding where money is going, how do we support nonprofits who may not be able to do paperwork well, but they're actually doing the work well, and why I don't disagree with all the allocation for the funding. I do disagree with some of it, and particularly looking at the task force and the makeup of the task force. The members who were present or not present the day that the allocations were voted on. And if you look at, for me, it's on page 26. If you look at the sheet that tallied the votes, along with some of the narratives in the, from the individuals on the committee. It's just back for me to the comments that I've been making about the need for us to make sure that accountability measures are in place, and that organizations that are doing this work best are being funded, and how to make sure we support that. So one of the comments here says, one member felt as though OED needed to provide evidence that entrepreneurship is a way out of poverty. I don't know why they would have been on the committee if they don't understand. They don't understand that. So just those are the type of questions I had. The entire page for me was highlighted in red, but those were some of the concerns that I had.
I echo those statements. and share your concerns, Mayor Walker. I appreciate you bringing it up for the public to be aware of.
All right. So, do we have a second?
Just a second.
All right, please vote. So it carries 3-2. All right, next we have the city manager response to
No,
community
we still
matters.
have
Sorry, we
item
still
D.
have
where are
item
we
D.
at?
ID,
Huh?
1D.
Oh, sorry, I just forgot after I asked for it. Okay,
The 2019-2020 Home Investment Partnership Funding for $120,382.75.
okay. And I was making my comments as one, so the same comments apply there. All right, please vote.
These items have certainly been discussed among many council meetings before we got to this point. I just want to acknowledge that to the public. This is during different phases of this and these allocations, we've certainly had a chance to hear from the public and discuss this at length, so I just wanted
And there was a, I think, March 12th Planning Commission
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Joint meetings. And I've been clear about my position through all of them. All right, so now we're at the city manager's response to community matters from the April 15th council meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Walker. Two things for follow-up in your consideration this evening. One, as you said earlier, Ms. Myra Anderson is not here, but you asked for follow-up from my office, and we did so on three fronts. And without going deeply into Ms. Anderson's complaints, I will say that she did come forward to the folks at the Office of Human Rights, and they'll give that appropriate follow-up. I asked Ms. Dimmock to meet with the executive director at Region 10, and she did so, and I met with the board chair. We have given the appropriate follow-up on all the fronts, and you're probably aware from some media that Ms. Anderson is also pursuing a civil rights complaint federally. Secondly, we discussed the matter of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and appropriate access. I met with Mr. Vandiver and others at the Independence Resource Center during the intervening period, and I'm bringing before you a proposal for a group that we mutually agreed upon to address this issue. And those members are 13 in number, and they are the following: myself, a member of NDS, member of Parks and Rec, the ADA coordinator, a representative of VDOT, two representatives of the Dogwood Vietnam Veterans Foundation, Bruce Eads and Rich Severin, two members of the Independence Resource Center, Tom Vandiver and Jim Herndon, one member of the Disabled American Veterans, George Shadman, one member of the Veteran of Foreign Wars, Julian Taliaferro, and two citizens at large, Jay Levine and Dave Norris. So, with council's permission, it's my intent to, with Mr. Vandiver, convene that group and hopefully bring to you at either the 2nd October or 1st November meeting our joint recommendations. Perhaps there'll be some intermediate recommendations sooner, but that was the objective we agreed to at our meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, now we have, did you?
Might I ask you just to confirm that you're okay with the strategy while we're here together?
Oh, yes, sounds good.
I'm fine. Thank you.
I had a quick question, Mr. Murphy. I know there's not a great deal in which you can share with us in regards to Ms. Myra Anderson's complaint, but is there anything in which you can share other than, letting the public know that you met and followed up? I think in some regards, people are looking for what action steps, and if there's any that you can share. I know it's a personal and there's confidentiality involved, but if there is anything you could share, could you?
Yeah, I prefer to share as little as possible, except to say that, my role in it, in speaking to the board chair, is to convey the seriousness of the discussion that the city council had. And that it is in keeping, in my mind, with discussions that you have been having on an ongoing basis about the evaluation of nonprofits and community partners. And that there was a discussion during the meeting about the funding for the organization and how it might be in relationship to how they address this important issue. So I think for my part, that's what I'm most comfortable speaking
Sure,
to.
yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. So now we're gonna start the community matters. The first thing we have is Brad Slocum. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Brad Slocum, and I live on Harmon Street in the city. First off, I'd like to say thank you for bringing climate change more to the forefront in city decisions and planning. It's imperative that discussions around topics like zoning and affordable housing factor in issues like more frequent and more intense flooding and heat waves, sustainable construction practices, and energy efficiency. Underprivileged and underrepresented members of our community, such as racial minorities, low-income households, and the elderly, will bear the brunt of climate change if we don't take action now and soon. So precisely for that reason, I encourage you to vote yes on agenda item number 7, a resolution in support of federal legislation for a carbon fee and dividend policy to address climate change. Passing this resolution would make Charlottesville the first municipality in Virginia to officially support such a progressive federal climate plan and signal to our representatives and senators in Congress that we expect concrete action from them to address carbon emissions and economic inequality. This resolution is modeled on H.R. 763, also known as the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which was developed over the last 10 years by the Citizens Climate Lobby. CCL is a volunteer organization working on bipartisan solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions without further harming the most vulnerable and disadvantaged in our society. CCL believes local action is critical for doing our part to reduce emissions, but we also need many deep and systemic changes to our economy and society at large. The mechanism we support is known as carbon fee and dividend, which I'll just say up front is not the same thing as cap and trade. Put simply, carbon fee and dividend means putting a price on carbon at the source, like coal mines and natural gas drilling sites, and taking that price to give it back to the people. More than half of all households and upwards of 60% of individuals in our country stand to come out ahead monetarily from this dividend, and that's on top of health and environmental benefits that will come from reducing greenhouse gases and other pollutants. There are plenty of other details in CCL's proposed legislation, which I don't have time to cover here, but I'm excited to say that the resolution before you tonight captures the important points effectively. CCL as an organization is founded on the idea that dealing with climate change means bridging gaps between those who've suffered from or been left out of the fossil fuel economy and those who have the power to change it. That process has to be community-led, and so although our chapter is only 7 months old, we're already 200 members strong and working out to reach more parts of the community all the time. We thank you for considering this important part of the fight to enact solutions, climate change, and greenhouse gas emissions, and we hope you vote affirmatively in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Irvine.
Hi, I'm Emily Irvin, and I'm going to cede my time this evening to these young people.
And you can pull that down.
Can you say their names too?
Yes, they are Evan and Sebastian Cruz, and Nora McElwain and Eleanor Trimble.
Dear City Council, my name is Sebi Cruz. I think we should use less plastic. I forgot to say one thing.
You got it.
Start it again.
You don't have to start again, you just tell them.
Start it again. Can I just start again if I want to? Okay. Dear City Council, My name is Sylvia Cruz. I am worried about my family. I think we should use less plastic, use less electricity. Please help the earth. Dear City Council, my name is Evan Cruz. I am 3rd grade at Greenbrier Elementary School. I care about climate change. Do we want a sad and miserable life or a happy life? Come on, people. I want to see the solar panel store sold out with at least one solar panel on every house. I think we should check every 2 years to see how we've done and learn from our mistakes. I'd also like to thank the Charlottesville Climate Collaborative for everything they do.
Dear City Council members, I'm Nora McElwain. I'm in 3rd grade at Greenbrier. I'm worried about our future. When we're off to college in 9 years, is it going to be filled with gas and trash or a nice clean place? If you care about your children, you should help them have a nice clean place too. And fossil fuels, yes, we can use them, but I think not. We should totally use solar panels, and it will mess up the food chain too. We eat some of these animals, but if they're all gone, we won't live either, and I think you would like to live. You should really listen to me. Even though we're just kids, we have a lot of ideas like more bike trails, and don't take your car. We could have buses daily. You should check your work, because if you're not checking it in 2 years, it will be the same as right now. Hope you liked my notes. Sincerely, Nora McElwain.
Dear City Council, hello, my name is Eleanor. I am in 3rd grade. I care about climate change because it is bad for the earth. We should stop climate change because we would get harsh storms and it could wreck people's homes, so they would not have homes. I live in Charlottesville. It is a beautiful city, so please help me protect it. I hope you set a good goal, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ravi is, no, Wes was talking. Okay. Oh, I was pausing for him.
That's a hard act to follow. That was fantastic. Advocacy starts young. So thank council for having me here tonight. Mayor Walker for letting me speak on behalf of C3, a climate advocacy group here in town. I got involved with C3 probably about a year or two ago, and they've worked diligently to bring the business community together with the broader community and myself. I work as the president at United Way, so bringing the nonprofit community together to look at how we thoughtfully bring climate change down at the community level and what are the things we can implement in our own businesses to improve our carbon footprint. So I'll speak briefly about what United Way's done. We've actually replaced our HVAC systems, our LED light systems. We've done putting in new windows, so enacting different, putting in new structures in our buildings so we can actually see a better carbon footprint for ourselves, and then also working with other nonprofits in the community to also bring this kind of leadership into their businesses, and then also looking out to the broader community of businesses to help them prioritize climate change in their business practices and work on what those strategies might look like. So I'm here tonight to support the staff recommendation of a 45% greenhouse emission reduction by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2050. I would say that the current goal is a 10% reduction by 2035, which is probably the lowest goal in the state of Virginia. I feel that Charlottesville is a community that wants to be the best version of itself. And to do that, climate change needs to be a priority for all of us, and we all need to be thinking about how we approach that thoughtfully in our businesses. And then I'll also speak in terms of low-income members of our community that I've had the honor of serving over the past 10 years of my nonprofit work. They often, as been mentioned tonight, struggle with the cost and bear the cost of not having homes that are energy efficient. And so I've had clients that pay as much as $400 or $500 a month in the winter for their heating bills because they have inefficient systems and they have homes that aren't well insulated. And so these are a lot of the populations that United Way also serves with our direct services, and they struggle to make ends meet. And so again, our goal is to bring awareness around this and look to our city council to be a partner with our business and nonprofit communities in setting better action goals, and to also think about how we thoughtfully support our low-income neighbors in terms of how they're dealing with these issues in their homes every day. So I thank you for having me.
Thank you. Jeff Fogel.
Good evening. I'd like to cede my time to Marissa Turner.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm here representing the People's Coalition. As you see the flyers, I put some up there. I am here tonight to express the needs of a strong civilian review board with original jurisdiction to review complaints, support staff, and funding, especially push for an auditor and an executive director, and this is an entity issue that the council needs to pay attention to. We'll hear from the people and give you a sense of how acute and urgent this is. Police these police, because we need help. Next.
All right. So, Marcia Geyer.
You have seen what I sent my remarks as an email.
Okay.
I'd like to cede my time to Susan Cruz.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Susan Cruz, and I am the Executive Director of the Charlottesville Climate Collaborative. Thank you for prioritizing climate action as a council. I'm grateful to your excellent staff who are working hard to develop recommendations and solicit community feedback as part of the climate action planning process. I urge you to adopt staff's recommended target of 45% emissions reduction by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2050. With minimal movement at the federal and state levels, the importance of developing successful models for local governmental action is more urgent than ever. International scientists and policymakers are increasing their calls for drastic steps to decrease emissions. The next 10 years will determine whether or not we are able to avoid the most serious impacts of climate change. This community must do all it can to lead the way and build a small city model that can be replicated across the Commonwealth and beyond. By adopting staff's recommendation, the city of Charlottesville could become the first locality in the state to adopt a goal of carbon neutrality. The immensity of the problem will require cross-sector solutions. The city staff has offered some initial policy focus areas in their presentation to you this evening. The Charlottesville Climate Collaborative works with many leaders in these sectors and has witnessed a widespread desire for technical support and community-wide action. On the commercial side, business leaders are already taking steps to reduce their impacts. Tonight you heard from Ravi Rispetto from the United Way. While the city did not specifically ask the United Way to reduce their emissions, they have demonstrated leadership by implementing more than a dozen measures which will ultimately benefit our entire community. I encourage council to meet with leaders like Ravi to learn from their success and implement tools that will incentivize others to follow her lead. CPACE, recommended tonight, is one policy tool that should be embraced. However, we should also explore other administrative or procedural incentives in the commercial sector. On the residential side, the Charlottesville Climate Collaborative is working with city staff and community partners to research and develop recommendations for financing energy efficiency and clean energy upgrades to homes at all income levels in the city. As part of that research, the Charlottesville Climate Collaborative is examining the intersection of energy efficiency and affordable housing. Rising energy costs due to climate change will place an even greater strain on low-income families whose energy burden, the percentage of their income they pay for energy costs, is already a significant factor in housing affordability. We would love to see the city's climate action plan address these concerns and take action to alleviate that burden. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not insist that an ambitious target can only be met if we regularly check our progress to ensure that our policies are having the desired impact. While I did not see a recommendation to measure emissions every 2 years, I am confident that staff and council agree that regular measurement is an essential part of climate action.
Thank you. Sierra Gladfelter.
Hi, my name is Sierra Gladfelter, and I'd like to cede my time to the Green Grannies.
The grannies are back. It's lit. It's officially lit. The grannies are back.
The grannies are back. The panties are back because we're wanting to add some spirit, some excitement, both on everybody's part in our community to be part not only of the local benefits, but the global benefits for the future of a planet. So here we go. We want to do it now. We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. We're on a planet that has a problem. We've got to solve it, get involved, and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. Make it cleaner, make it cleaner, make it fast, and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. No get ready, or hesitating. We must get wise, no lies, and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. We need to wake up, to rise up, we need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start
So David Redding,
We got background singers, ad libs. This is dope. Man. Need to record a record, man. Take that show on the road, baby. Hey, hey.
That's a hard act to follow. So, I want to state that the United Nations came out today and said that, in effect, we may lose 1 million species if we don't do something about a number of things, a number of problems we have, climate change being one of the major ones. I want to also talk to you about things that we're doing in town here. If you look at community bikes, we're giving away 20, 25 bikes a week. And we're taking donations we take donations, put a donation amount on the bikes, and people donate. And we give away bikes to kids. If they're under 16 years old, we give them a bike, we give them a helmet, we give them lights, and a lock for on the bike. So we want to get more and more people on bikes. It's an important thing. We need better public transportation, and I know you guys have a problem because we're not riding these buses and things, and we have to find ways of getting more and more people on public transportation. Eco Village Charlottesville, which is just 1.5 miles from the downtown here, we've just gotten approval to build out 37 homes, energy-efficient homes on the property, and we'll be doing that in the next couple of years. We're doing co-housing, so we have a situation where we're trying to help people get away from living on social media and actually talking to people, talking to other people in the community. It's going to be a big thing with us to have a real community. So we're close to a bus stop We're about 100 meters from a bus stop that would bring you into town in 20 minutes or take you to the mall in 8 minutes. So, you could, it's a great place to stay. Also, there's bike and ped trails right into town along the John Warner Parkway. So we need more bike trails. We need ways of getting, other inputs into the Ravenna Trail. I appreciate all that you've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll say there's a great, well, I thought it was pretty great, but I started trying to check out a little bit a couple weeks ago. I watched Our Planet series on Netflix, and well, five of the episodes, but well, it was quite a bit. But it's really informative, and they do it in a very creative way. My 16-year-old was interested, also. So it's a great way to get maybe, your youth kids the information too. So I would recommend that Netflix series. Rich Alave. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Rich Aleve.
Okay.
I'm a resident of Charlottesville, business owner, and an environmental advocate.
Mm-hmm.
First, I'd like to say that the fact that we're here today discussing greenhouse gas emissions reductions is a testament to the great strides made by Mayor Walker, Councilmember Signer, the City Council, and the City staff. You've all demonstrated professionalism, diligence, and political leadership in making climate change a priority for Charlottesville. I'm here today to represent the Charlottesville Renewable Energy Alliance, a group of local businesses who collectively represent over 400 employees. And we have developed more than $6 billion of renewable energy assets. All of our companies chose to make Charlottesville our home. And we made that choice in part because of this city's commitment to building a brighter future for all of its residents. My company, SunTribe Solar, shares this value as well. What started as 3 employees in an old warehouse on Gleason Street today is the largest distributed solar energy company in Virginia. Because when it comes to building that brighter energy future, we believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. For us, that means focusing on creating good, family-supporting jobs. And those jobs are in the renewable energy field, like the ones we've created through the Go Solar program, developed in close partnership with the city, where we've been able to hire some great employees from underrepresented communities throughout the city. With that said, the real question is, why are we here today? At Seville REA, we want to establish Charlottesville as the renewable energy hub of the Southeast. Voting to establish a strong emissions reduction target next month would be an important signal to other renewable energy employers that they should want to call Charlottesville home as well. Second, we support our community's transition to sustainable energy practices. We want to make sure that as we transition to a clean energy future, nobody gets left behind. It's clear that this council shares those values, and we hope that with a supportive vote in June, it continues to display that commitment. As many in this room know, this past October, some of the world's leading scientists from every corner of the globe provided us with a roadmap forward that, if we choose to implement it, will help ensure the health and well-being of not just our Earth, but the communities throughout it. A big component of that roadmap is ensuring that our globe doesn't warm more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change concluded that a 45% reduction in emissions by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2050 would curb otherwise imminent catastrophic effects of climate change. We're here today along with a number of advocates and citizens to lend our voice in support of Charlottesville's move towards setting a modern, comprehensive, science-based emissions reduction target that is consistent with the IPCC's recommendation. We're asking you to vote yes to staff's recommendations at June's City Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. David Swanson.
Good evening. David Swanson, Gillespie Avenue. I have a petition with hundreds of names on it I'd like to present to you asking for divestment from weapons and fossil fuels. And I have 5 copies of a draft resolution that would permit the city, as is found in the recommendations section of the city treasurer's report, to act immediately on its general fund and to commit to acting in the near future on the retirement fund. So if appropriate, I'd like to present all of these to you. U.S. weapons companies arm 3/4 of the world's dictatorships and both sides of numerous wars. Without the U.S. government's support for fighters in Afghanistan, Syria, and elsewhere, there would be no Al-Qaeda or ISIS. Previous weapons customers turned enemies have included Hussein, Gaddafi, and Assad. The United States creates its enemies. But now, over less than my lifetime, the United States has led the world in creating the worst enemy ever seen, an environment that will attack life on Earth with massive fires and droughts and floods for many centuries to come, even if we cease all planetary destruction this minute. A principal cause of the weaponized environment is the wars fought primarily for oil with which to further destroy our environment. Dick Cheney met with ExxonMobil to plan the war on Iraq. Our city invests our hard-earned money in ExxonMobil. One of the craziest things is how the environmental collapse is being used as an excuse for yet more wars. But do you know what anyone who survives what in best case scenarios is going to be several climate-caused holocausts will find hardest to understand about us, the people who built their hell? It's our casualness. It's our calm complacency. It's our desire to carefully consider whether or not to do our bit to mitigate the destruction. Even the U.S. Congress is ready to halt the genocide it has been committing against the people of Yemen, but Charlottesville is pleased to go on funding Boeing. The world's nations are banning nuclear weapons, but Charlottesville is delighted to dump our money into Honeywell, and Boeing for that matter. Did the city of Charlottesville ask anyone in this room if that's where we wanted our money? They didn't ask me. The cost of the extreme weather that's coming, including those storm-wrecked houses that little girl just told us about, will dwarf any possible difference in the income from investing in guns and oil versus investing in something less destructive. I'd like to ask everyone here to please stand up with me if you want this city to stop using our own money against us and to act now without delay. Now. Thank you.
Thank you. Virginia Rovnak. Good
I'm
evening.
Virginia Rovnak. I live in Albemarle County. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I also support this petition to have the city divest from weapons manufacturers and fossil fuel producers. I want to point out that even though I live in the county, I have standing on this issue because my taxes go to the county and $15 million of county money goes to the city through revenue sharing. So I have standing on what the city does with its money. So, I don't know if you know, but gun manufacturers give millions of dollars to the National Rifle Association, the NRA. It's good for business. The NRA then gives money to legislators and uses all its power to influence legislators on gun safety issues. I have seen this action in person. A year ago, January, I attended a meeting of the Virginia Senate Courts of Justice Committee, which heard 10 to 15 gun safety bills. And the way it went, the bill would be read, and an attractive young woman would come to the microphone and say, the NRA opposes this, and then she would sit down. There would be very brief discussion, and then they voted down all of them. Now, some of these were wide-ranging bills, like universal background checks. One was very small and narrow, and it would have allowed the city of Charlottesville to ban weapons at permitted events if it chose. And Councilor Galvin, you were there, you spoke for the bill. But despite the fact, I mean, it boggles the mind, this was 5 months after August 2017, that they would not allow Charlottesville permission to protect against an armed invasion such as we had on August 12th. So I would like the city to take one small step by divesting from gun manufacturers and diminish very slightly what I call this unholy flow of influence and money that keeps us all from being getting any reasonable, any tiny gun safety laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanisha Hudson.
Well, Mike Murphy had me put something in my calendar. It's not on the agenda tonight. Remember you told me we was gonna talk about parks today? But I'll wait. I'm gonna see my time to Mr. Gaines. I was looking for you in the crowd, but give him some time because he just had surgery, so he gotta walk down here. He got some things he wanna talk to you about tonight. Y'all free from me for now.
Oh my goodness. Is it snow outside? Weather, is it snow? Snow in May.
I can talk if
We
you
know.
want me to. I don't think you're ready.
I'm ready.
Oh,
I missed the game.
CRB somebody.
There you go. There you go.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Gaines.
My name's John Gaines. I live at 214 9th Street Northwest in the city. It was an interesting comment the last lady made. Well, I won't bother that. Let me move on with this. I have a petition for traffic lights. And the residents of the 10th and Page neighborhood, we're asking the city to install traffic lights at the following intersections: 10th and Page Streets, 8th and Main Streets. Now, the 10th and Page one is one that there's a flashing light there presently. But it's my understanding that many of the youngsters that live in West Haven in the coming year or coming years will be going to Venable School rather than being bused to Burnham Moran. So it appears that it would be safe for the city to install traffic lights there so that they could cross over safely in their travel to Venable. Now, 8th and Main Streets. Main Street is the street that I think is on the agenda tonight to be discussed. And there are many residents that live in neighborhoods adjacent to Main Street. And presently, it's hard to get onto Main Street from 8th Street because traffic travels like they're on 64 on Main Street. And it's really a problem for residents to get on Main Street. Another street that I didn't ask to be placed on our petition is up at 8th and Preston Avenue. Now, there are a lot of violations that go on in that area. There are trucks unloading right in the no parking zone, and they pull up on the sidewalk, and the next thing the city's going to be paying for is repair for sidewalks. But it appears that truckers can do whatever they want to do in Charlottesville, and that's unfortunate. But I have the petition that I'd like to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Mayor Walker, 8th and, just for clarification, 8th and Main is the same spot that Ms. Parker's, that we had the discussion about the last meeting. Yeah, but nonetheless, there's still traffic. Now, as we talked about in the last meeting, with our traffic engineer, and there's a great deal of discussion in regards to how council has the ability to proceed forth, whether that is a light, whether that is the lights for the crosswalk. And it was stated during the last meeting that we haven't heard a great deal of other community support in regards to it. We've heard clearly from Mr. Gaines as well as he has a petition. And I'm wondering, does this constitute enough for us to be able to move forward with getting something additional there at that stop sign?
So the last time it was brought up, Mr. Murphy was checking into it, and
Yeah, I understood that the action by the council, or the will of the council last time, is that we revisit this down the road 3 to 6 months after we work on enforcement activity in the area from the Charlottesville Police Department and gain additional information from the traffic engineer.
Right.
That's what happened at the 415 meeting.
Yeah.
You know, with regard to Mr. Gaines's comments, you know, certainly the traffic engineer can provide guidance to council about whether the intersection of 8th and Main meets the warrants for another signal. I would guess, based on the number of signals on that street, that that is probably not the case, but we'll provide you the information, certainly. You know, I would just say with regard to Dr. Bellamy's statement, it is true that council has acted in the past to direct staff to put in rapid flash beacons when they were not warranted. However, I don't know that repeating the practice of overruling the traffic engineer is preferable, and I do want you to at least get some legal advice about what the city's liability may be if we take that action as a council action rather than how it is regulated by the staff.
So I appreciate that. I don't want to belabor the point because I think I made my points very clear last meeting how I feel about it, but I will reiterate this one point. If council in the past has used our authority to be able to place similar kind of lights on streets and paths in other neighborhoods, I think we definitely need to look at doing so here. I understand that there are legal ramifications and different things that we need to look at, but we've heard, just 1 second please. Thank you. We've heard on several different occasions, and I think now hearing it from Mr. Gaines as well as from other community members, including Ms. Parker, who's been talking about this for years now, that this should constitute us taking action and not waiting an additional 6 months for another study to come back about it. But I'll just leave it there because you all know where I stand.
Y'all not gonna cite white businesses, but if it was males, you would cite them. If males was bringing all that traffic, when
so
males
could
don't
you
bring that traffic, they
let
would
us
cite
know
them.
what have enforcement activity increased on the area since April 15th? What has happened? Like, what conversations have you all had internally in terms of this intersection?
Chief Brackney and I have talked about referring that to the traffic division. Has it started already, Chief?
Yes, and we're also looking at putting what is called a speed timing device.
Okay.
So there's a couple approaches that you take when you find out there's a problem or there's a problem that's brought to the community. Either as an actual or perceived issue around traffic flow, pedestrian flows and things like that at mid-block crosswalks, or if they don't meet standards that the state would regulate, understanding that when we have traffic devices that are put in place, like stop signs, like lights, they are to regulate traffic. They're not to be used as speed calming devices. If you use them as a speed calming device is when you find yourself in legislative issues or even legal issues, and Mr. Blair will be able to speak to that. I just text the sergeant of our traffic saying, let's put out the traffic timing or the speed timing device that you'll see in other places that will count the number of cars that go through that community, the speeds they go through it, the dates, times, locations, and then when you couple that with citing persons who may be violating the pedestrian crosswalks, we also probably need to do some educating on both the vehicular and pedestrian traffic about what is appropriate and legal conduct
there's the assumption that the pedestrian has the right of way. That is not the case. The rules say that the pedestrian has the right of way and you must yield once they are in the crosswalk, not because they step out into it automatically. So there has to be some education component as well as an assessment of what the actual problem is so that you can then address it with the appropriate measure. So it may be a speed calming measure versus necessarily a traffic device that you want to put in place.
I wouldn't disagree. Literally, I wouldn't disagree with anything that you just said. But in my personal opinion, I don't think it has to be an either or. I think it can be an and. So
I can only do the,
yeah, you only can do what's in your purview.
I can do what is within my realm, and I know the engineer was here last time to speak to their assessment. So in terms of what we can do to help assist with that or support those, we'll move forward on that.
Yeah,
that's already been done.
I'm speaking more so to council. Like I am rather frustrated with the fact that we are again thinking that we have to take 6 months or so to be able to further discuss and then have another analysis about this subject when we clearly hear from people that it's needed. And I don't want to compare this to other neighborhoods or the process before. It's needed now. It's a minimal amount of money. We need to do it. But that's just my thought.
May I say something?
Well, I just think, we're talking about, we would still need the engineers to come back and talk about what measure needs to be put in place. They've asked for two different things.
Yes.
He just asked for a stoplight, and then Ms. Parker has been asking for the flashing lights. So but I also think that, the plan that we discussed before in terms of if there have been violations, well, we are in 8th and Main right now. That, that the enforcement piece, which might, that conversation that we're having might change the numbers that we end up with doing the monthly report from the chief of police about stops, how they're initiated. I would also like us to, think about that piece also.
So Mayor Walker, if I could piggyback on that, because that was also what I was going to emphasize too, is that there's two different solutions now being brought forth, the flashing light and then the stop signal, the signal at 8th and Main. But there's also then been brought to our attention tonight 10th and Page and then 8th and Preston. So those, if we can, roll those into the discussion that we had from the last meeting to get an analysis on those conditions as well. That's what I would like to see.
I think that method just prolongs the solution.
No, not within the same. I'm asking for within the same time frame. Look at that all together.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, we've heard, like, when we convolute the two and we say, like, well, Mr. Gaines asked for a stoplight and Ms. Parker was asking for flashing lights. Like, she's been asking for this literally for multiple years. We can do that in the immediate, and then even if we were going to do a stop light, that would take so long for us to study, and then we're now talking about adding in 8th and Preston and these other stop, like the initial one that's been asked about and that we just had a long conversation about was 8th and Main. All they're literally asking for are more flashing lights right there so people can cross the street. We've done it. Councils have done it before. We need to do it now. It doesn't require more conversation. Like, that is.
So, Councilor Bellamy, though, if I may ask, are you saying that we should ignore what Mr. Gaines brought before us today?
Again, then that convolutes the discussion, and that makes it. Okay, thank you, Ms. Hudson. So that I think when we say things like, let's ignore what Mr. Gaines is saying, I'm not saying like let's ignore what he's saying. I'm just saying that the immediate need and the request has been made for a very long time should have some precedent. And that's something that we can do sooner rather than later. And we have the authority to be able to do so. It doesn't require another study.
So you have the.
Mayor, there are two very different requests, so I just need to hear,
I'm
is the council asking for more immediate action than we discussed last time on rapid flash beacons, or are you asking for the exploration of a traffic signal? Because pretty different.
I'm asking for a specific request to insert the flashing lights at 8th and Main.
So if the request that came before us just now with the signatures asked for a stoplight. If are flashing lights and stoplights in the same place?
No, ma'am. No, if there was a signal, if it was a signalized intersection, then you would presumably have a pedestrian crosswalk there with, you know, there'd either be a little red or white sign when it was time to cross at the appropriate time. They would work in conjunction with one another, but the rapid flash beacon would not be at the same place that there was a traffic signal.
Anything?
Mayor Walker, I would just like to stick to the plan that we agreed to last meeting, which was to have the review done within the next 6 months? But I want to add into that discussion.
Did you say 6 or 3?
So if somebody
3 months. So I want to understand where this.
Last time we said 6.
6, okay.
Last time.
But I want to understand as well what we need to do at 10th and Page and 8th and Preston, because those have come up for a long time as well, but within that time frame.
And
So you
I think
can
we
add
also just,
you can add those two to the enforcement pieces. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I just think it's important for us to acknowledge and to weigh with the public, there's a lot of pedestrian intersections that are not safe pedestrians. I think we heard throughout our budget cycle, and we weren't able to allocate any money towards the Elliott Avenue, any kind of crossings that are there, and that's come from a number of neighborhoods. And so I just think it's important that there's a lot of intersections that have been raised, obviously some in more public forums than others, but I just hope that we're able to take a systemic approach and really look at, you know, where some of the biggest pain points are. And I'm not saying this isn't one of them, I'm just saying that we have to recognize that there's many that have come before council in different ways.
Are there any proposed changes there with the West Main Street streetscape?
I don't know, that's something that we could give more immediate feedback on at the May 20th meeting for sure, what that streetscape calls for. And I can tell you that while I believe one of the spots Mr. Gaines is talking about with the trucks is on Preston, that there is also a great problem with that on Main Street
Yes.
because of the streetscape and because there are very few loading zones on that. And so I would encourage council, when you ultimately approve the final streetscape of West Main, to make sure that while there's lots of talk and lots of pressure about parking all the time, that if there's no loading zones on the street, that it creates these other problems for people too.
But that's one of the main problems on Kansas
Alright.
Main is the loading.
Gaines want to say
Yes.
something, y'all. So we're just asking for something small, where
You gotta walk all the way out the road and get.
Okay.
The car gotta go over.
Gaines,
Up at 8th and Preston, there's a loading zone on the right-hand side as you turn off 8th going toward Reed Supermarket. They have an area where they can unload up in that area. But they presently are unloading right on 8th Street where there's no parking outside.
on the side.
Okay.
Or no car.
You got it? Page 3. All right. 8. Yeah,
On the side of Cardinal Hall.
you got that. Yeah, okay.
That's the problem. Call them tomorrow.
All right, next we have Katrina Turner.
Katrina Turner, I yield my time to Rosia Parker. My name is Rosia Parker.
Good evening.
And, I'm very disappointed still in 8th Street because the cars still have to go over top of the pedestrian drive, the walkway. Either you're gonna get hit, or either you're gonna get ran over, or you got to stand still. Thank you for the little signs that you gave us, but you got it from another neighborhood because it was bent up with stickers on it. I mean, could we at least got a brand new sign? and you're always looking stupid every time I say something to you. I don't understand. I've been coming to you for years, Mike. You take things personal like the rest of them. We used to have a good conversation, but when wrong is wrong, is wrong is wrong. But I shouldn't have to have a sign that I have to look up with stickers on the back with it bent up. You know, we could at least got brand new pedestrian signs and a little sign at least with the plastic that you Ben said that we had at the last few meetings ago that we still don't have, that's still dented up. And also I want to talk to you too about, thank y'all for finally giving a say today after your police chief got caught in her stories. Thank you, Mr. Nolan, for that report. We want transparency. And obviously we're not getting transparency. We met our quota, what we was asked to do. So we appreciate if y'all do y'all's part, because we do need a CRB, because we're tired of going back and forth with the police department. We're tired of being, as a CRB members, we're tired of being degraded and dehumanized for things that we aren't doing. And then when the city are wrong for what they're doing, y'all are not quick to, y'all quick to throw out the press release, but you're not quick to rescind the press release after Mr. Josh Bowers was degraded, which he should have not been, because as the calendar shows that she was available for every meeting that was asked for. And also, I want to go back to another officer of yours that is in, I believe, your case, and another case of another person. As your police officers know, if we was supposedly the problem for the CRB, and for the police, mighty funny, your police officer didn't see me sitting right behind him as he's harassing patrons for sitting in the Waffle House, for minding their own business, and because they do not want to engage in his conversations, he continued to harass that man, knowing that man had to come back into that Waffle House. Mr. Pedro, yes, I sat right there and I watched him Saturday night, my first time in the Waffle House. So no, I did not know him, but he also didn't know that I was sitting behind him as well. And I will be sending a report, Ms. Brackney. But I think y'all need to get it in order, and you're not going to be here, so you don't give a goddamn what happens to us, Mike.
So I do have a question on why you were thinking Nolan, because Nolan would be, and his reporting would be the issue here.
Excuse me?
So
Did
Nolan's,
it come out in the daily program?
what? So the CRB and the press release?
No, the press release was last week that y'all didn't rescind on Josh Murphy, while y'all said that he was lying on the police chief, and then the response that you gave him was not very counsel-like, because it wasn't his fault that whatever went in that paper, and it became a he say, she say, and then it became against the CRB, which was dead wrong, which it should be apology for that, because he didn't do it. And then I guess if it ain't out, it will be in the paper where your her calendar was foiled, and every day that was asked for, it was a free day.
So there's.
It was a free day. Everyone that we asked for.
So if I may, I think I just have a personal opinion.
We're not trying to go.
I understand that. I'm just
It was
talking.
the point that we asked
So
for
I'm responding.
transparency, but we're not getting
I'm
it
responding
from
to the
CPD.
comment specifically in regards to Chief Brackney's calendar. I read the article. There's personal issues that I have with it. It's neither here nor there, but I do think that it's really difficult and challenging for us to expect Chief Brackney, like if you, for one, you all don't see everything that's on the calendar. And if there's an hour block, is she not allowed time to eat? Like, is she not allowed time to have phone conversations? Yeah, so even on my calendar, so I'm talking, that's fine. So like I said, when I'm talking, like you all, I just think that we take these positions with Chief Brackney in which we're like, she can do absolutely no right. Okay. And you all can, no, I don't, first of all, I'll never punk out. You, Mr. Fogel, was the last person who could tell me to punk out. There's no person here.
Okay, so we're giving time for everyone to share their opinion. So,
thank you, Mayor Walker.
Okay. Harold Foley.
People's Coalition. Check people in here that's calling people outside their name, because I thought he was kicked out of here anyway.
Oh, he's allowed to sit, he don't say anything.
Yeah, Mason was called somebody a black, you know what?
Harold Foley, People's
Good
Coalition.
evening.
Is this on?
No.
Testing, testing.
It's on.
Can you hear me?
Is that on?
Hey, Harold Foley, People's Coalition. I'm gonna cede my time to Richard Kunks.
Good evening.
My name is Richard Kuntz. And I had something
Brother Kuntz.
prepared, but as I sit here and listen, and thank you, Mr. Gaines. I shared a yard with Mr. Gaines growing up, and he's like a treasure of Charlottesville, so I'll give him his due. But the problem, and I want to speak on my criminal history first. I have an extensive criminal history. 3 convictions over the course of 21 years, and I've managed to serve over 17 years in prison for less than a couple $100 worth of cocaine. I had a substance abuse problem since the age of 19. I've never been offered a treatment center. I've never been offered a probation break. I've been shot in the city of Charlottesville on 2 separate occasions. Once in 1996. The result of me being shot, I served 21 months on a probation violation. I was shot in 2004. I grew up in an era where they called it a war on drugs. Today, white kids use drugs and they call it an epidemic. I grew up in an era when they had things called soda zones. Stay out of designated drug areas. But if you look at that soda zone map in the city of Charlottesville, there's no soda zones that ever crossed Avon Street, Avon Avenue. Not a single one. While this city criminalized entire neighborhoods, people who look like me, we had to have records, decisions that I made at 15, and I'm no angel. I made a lot of wrong decisions as I began to transform my life and look at things different and hold myself accountable for the decisions in which I made. The importance of having a strong civilian review board is that when someone is sentenced to 9 years for $39 worth of crack cocaine, something is wrong with that situation. To compound that situation, 46 years of unsupervised good behavior. That's my story. I know by coming here today that I kind of probably put a bullseye on my back.
It's okay, we got you.
I know that one false move, I could be sentenced to 46 years for jaywalking. Right? And then I look around in the audience. I look around everybody here. I very rarely see people from my neighborhood. I don't see nobody who look like me or who come from the background that I come from. And that's because where I grew up at, we grew up in an era where city council don't care. City council don't change anything.
That's right. That's right. Especially Heather.
I would hope today, especially Mayor Walker, with you, that you continue to help facilitate change for people like me. To be able to want to do something different. I'm putting forth the effort to change my life today. I wrote a letter to the judge. I'm paying all kind of fines, and it's part of my responsibility. And I asked him, I said, can I serve community service in lieu of paying my court fines? I never got a response from the judge, but I called the clerk's office, and they told me, they said, well, we do have a thing where you could do community service in lieu of paying your court fines. However, you have to be serving an active sentence at the Alexand Charlottesville Regional Jail. So, as money get tight for me, and I continue to try to do the right thing. I try to be a positive role model for my daughter and the rest of my kids. It's incredibly difficult to do these things, and then as coming up, the police would do anything to us, to me. Come over here and right, and I'm removed from the street, so but I know it's still going on. They would right. So I had a run-in with the police in Garrett Square, and they told me that you either let me take your picture, it's a Friday night, or you could spin and wait till Monday to get out. That's a fact. Then I was later given a probation violation for being in the soda zone with no crime committed, sentenced to 10 months. So the stories, I have about 50, but I know we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah,
and I will hope that we could get this civilian review board so that the next people who make bad decisions at 15 will not have to spend over 17 years in their life inside and outside of prisons before they decide to do the right thing and then hold. Because if I have to hold myself accountable along the lines, the police should be held accountable as well. I just believe that. I just believe. I'm no angel. I'm no saint. I did a lot of things that I had no business doing. I take responsibility for that. However, for police to make me take my clothes off out in the streets is wrong. It was wrong then. It should be wrong now. But this city has a reputation of doing that in the communities that I grew up in. I grew up in the 10th and Page neighborhood, and they could do anything they want. So this is what I'm hearing that's still going on. And if that's the case, when do we stop? Thank you for letting me share.
So, just a couple of things that I'm thinking and acknowledging that I gave one extra time, because it's good when we hear from people who are not normally in the room. And I think it's important for us to get as many people in the room as possible. In terms of the CRB and the comments that I've been making in the past few months, I think it's very important for us to realize that when we are doing this work that we are doing, that we are remembering the individuals who have been and are truly affected. And every conversation that I have with the counselors, city staff, it's about remembering the environment that we've created in Charlottesville and to make sure that we are undoing that. And my comments, which I'm sure someone will have, I think someone has FOIA'd, to CRB members about the responsibility for us to make sure that we are removing our egos from the equation at all times and looking at the bigger picture for this. So what Mr. Kuntz was just talking about, my family members were in those same areas, suffering from the same conditions, going to the same prisons as he was. So I don't take any of this work lightly, but in the same breath, when I am challenging people to remove their temporary feelings from the equation, I am faced with the same backlash as if it hasn't been my friends, my family members, my loved ones who have been incarcerated, arrested, lives have changed for generations. So I think we all need to take a look. I spoke with Mr. Gathers, you see you, but I'm pointing, and we talked about, just how important that is. I'll be the first one to tell you the response that I got initially from CRB members, I didn't meet with them regarding CRB issues after that. I felt the comments, the conversations that I was hearing, it's for me, let my actions speak for itself. It was nothing that I felt that I would say that would change at that point the opinion that had been formed about me and my particular interest in this. So this has been a really rocky process. There were comments made about the last joint meeting we had, and I sat down there because everything I seemed to say, there's some backlash for, so I sat back down there at that time and didn't say much. And I still got backlash and criticism for not saying much, that time. So I think it's just important for us all to realize, why we're here, why we are doing this work, and how to do it right. We know that the advisory board that was in place before now, it was not effective, and so there wasn't any oversight of the police department. I talk since mid-2000 about some of the encounters my clients have had, my family members have had publicly with the police department, with Jade Task Force. I openly call for the task force to be dismantled. It is important for us. I have never not had that conversation. There is no one in the city who can say that I have came to the conversation with a different perspective. And I think it's just important for us to understand where we are in this process and what we're bringing to the table. And to get this done, it's going to take true collaboration, and we are not there. And I will say it, and this might get me in a little bit of trouble, the next council, who could fill these 3 seats looks very scary for even me, and a lot of the work that I'm very passionate about. And so I haven't had one conversation with one counselor, because this is a topic that if I had a conversation with Counselor Galvin Signer, and especially, Counselor Hill, who wouldn't be affected by choices if the CRB didn't work. Their family wouldn't be affected by it. If I had a conversation where I thought they were not supportive of it, I would have that conversation with them and with here with you all. We haven't had those conversations. We've all been trying to figure out, how to keep things going, how to also support, for me, the conversations I've been having the past few weeks, a police chief who was the only person who sat in the room and talked about reform at all and what that looks like, trying to couple public safety in a community where the perceived risk of safety versus the reality of it is often, the perceived risk is often what's brought to the top of the equation by the wealthier members of the community, and yet bring reform measures into it. And when we do pass things, like we funded an intern for the prosecutor office, that means that we're having conversations, Dr. Bellamy too, with Joe Platania about what maybe diversionary versus incarceration looks like. How to take an office that's very white and diversify it to have a different perspective in there. We funded and supported a collaboration with the university to offer free housing for this person for the summer, to get people who wouldn't maybe normally look at Charlottesville into the area for the summer, to see if they could then go back and talk to their friends or someone in the, so we have an intern from Howard University who will be spending, spending the summer here. And I think we need to, pay attention to, just to the holistic efforts. If we don't get the nonprofit community and that community accountable for the work they say they're doing with people who have had generational trauma, because I'm not hearing a lot of voices on understanding the magnitude of that. then people's lives are not going to change. If you all are not starting the nonprofits, if you all are not running them, then how are people going to get the assistance that they need? I referred 2 individuals in the past week to Mr. Fogel who needed some assistance. And did they not call you? Okay, just got the look. And I, Jeff and I we haven't been talking regularly, but I think that what their needs are, that he could, that he could be helpful. So I think, but we also have to build the team so that people have somewhere to go and they can get, adequate services and adequate, support. So again, we need to just make sure that we are, that the right energy is, and I'm not saying that my energy hasn't always been right. I'm just gonna claim that in terms of relationships with, because I didn't expect to have to fight you all, and you all know who I'm talking to, the way that I'm having to fight you. And to be told that I'm a part of a system, you can ask anybody up here if they feel like I'm part of the system or any staff member, and they're gonna tell you no, based on the conversations that we're having. And I think it's just very important. We're wasting a lot of time. Who just went? I forgot.
Harold,
Okay.
C.D.
Okay.
Mr. Coons.
So Sherry Henley.
But anyway, hi, I'm Cherry Henley, I work in the city.
Good evening.
I'm here to support the CRB as well, and I'm going to read some stories of people who wanted me to tell just a couple of stories of things that have happened with police in this area. A lot of people didn't want to come forward because, repercussions of being harassed, because they know that they will be harassed. But this is just a couple quick stories. And this one starts out with, there was an incident in my neighborhood and the police was called. The call was made and the operator asked, was the person white? And they are asking the question, what does the color have to do with the police responding to calls? Then when they came, one of the officers made the comment about the cars parked in front of the homes. Said he'll be glad when the city take the street over, so he'll give all the cars parked there tickets, knowing that all that was parked there was owned by blacks. All right, this is a young man to whom it may concern, he writes. I was walking home in Belmont behind Brown's store when a police cruiser pulled up on me. The officer jumped out and asked for identification at the time. I gave him that, and I gave him my ID. He called in to see if I was who I said I was. After my identification came back, then he called back up. They continued to question me for over 47 minutes to be exact. They couldn't find anything on me. I finally asked them, do you have any warrant for my arrest? They finally got around to saying no. Then my response was, what are you still holding me for? Bear in mind, I'm a black man and I just came home from prison after doing a lengthy sentence of 27 years. Thank you for the time, he said. And I want to share a little bit because I know his story also. So this is a good reason for a CRB to get on police officers, because if he had been violated, you see what I'm saying? If he had been violated right at that moment, he'd have been doomed. That would have been it. He'd have been, and along with that, there's a lot of harassment going on here with probation officers. So I support the CRB, and we all know that we have to have checks and balances on everyone. Someone said the word accountability. Everybody has to be accountable for their actions, and if you're wrong, you got to be accountable for that. And we want to make sure that all people are treated fairly in the city.
Thank you. Mason Pickett.
She voted
Okay.
That's your problem. You have no respect at all, period. And yes, I'm telling you that you have no respect. You don't call a black woman a black bitch. You don't do that. You don't do that. You don't do that. Because she got a son that'll come down here and drag you. And I'm telling you in front of council, don't disrespect her like that. You need to apologize.
Respect our mayor. Respect our mayor.
All them jackasses signs you had, you need to hold it for yourself.
Tanisha.
Calling her out her name. Don't Tanisha me.
No, I'm Tanisha you from up here.
He's disrespectful. Fucking respectful.
He is, absolutely.
All right.
Calling her a black bitch. You know better.
Being disrespectful to his
Keena.
members.
Miss Thomas, sorry. All right.
Thank you, Mayor. The Vietnam War was.
Apologize to her.
Keena, just.
Y'all thought Kessler was bad. This is daddy.
We just started. All right. Miss Thomas. Okay.
Thank you.
No black bitch. The fuck?
He's white.
Okay. Could you start it over, please?
There's young children in the room. Can we?
I don't care. They was in this room when he disrespected her.
I don't think we need
What
to
are you
exasperate
talking about?
it. I just would like.
They were in
So,
here when he
Tanisha-
called her that. Now you want to talk slow. Talk fast. Talk fast now. You don't do that.
I just would
These
rather.
young kids need to
Tanisha.
know what hate is. That's y'all problem. Y'all always trying to throw down hate. No,
So-
let them learn what hate is.
He's
That's
a hateful
hate.
person.
You don't call her that. Period. Do you understand that?
Okay,
Do
so
you understand that?
just.
It's no kids in here now. There you go, Tanisha.
It's not, but there's nothing that's ever been presented that tells us that you would get an apology, right?
Okay.
Like,
Y'all
we're not
don't
gonna
know
get
what's
it.
happening. Y'all
Well,
don't
if
know
he
what's
doesn't get it,
happening.
he can sit up there for the rest of the night.
But we would rather for him to have his 3 minutes and go
Go the fuck on.
back to the back of the room.
Go back there and pick one.
Okay.
That's what we gonna do.
What a lovely
That's
place.
true. Racist don't apologize. Miss Carrie.
Don't give him no more energy. Just don't give him no more energy.
But it ain't about that.
I know, it's about
Them playing
respect.
hate.
It's about
them
respect.
playing
But
hate.
we ain't gonna give
And
them
they
no
did that
energy.
enough in 2017.
Folks at home, are you catching all of this?
Yeah, assholes.
All right, Miss Thomas, could you start, please?
Talk. Let him finish, please. Now.
Thank you, Mayor. The Vietnam War was a very divisive war, but no matter how you felt, the facts are that many Americans were killed or wounded. I was glad to see that Ann Malik was at the 53rd rededication of the Vietnam Memorial. I was very disappointed that there was no one from this group there. I know that you don't have to answer my questions, but I know that you can if you want to. So I ask you, why weren't you there? Would anybody like to answer that?
No, you know you ain't gonna get no angry punch. You don't.
Folks at home, take note. Silence speaks volumes. Folks at home, you've had a good dose of what Charlottesville is like. They laugh about it in here, but people outside of the area are taking note. There's another good example. I say the more that they act up, the more that they lower themselves. So I encourage them to do more.
Are you,
Nice day, everybody.
thank you. So Anthony Guy Lopez. Hello.
Jack, do you, It's a hard act to follow there. Okay, my name is Anthony Guy Lopez. I'm a University of Virginia graduate. I'm a father. I'm also an enrolled Crow Creek Sioux tribal member. And I'm here to ask the City Council to consider moving the Lewis and Clark and Sacajawea statue.
Thank you.
Now, I came here to Charlottesville back in the early 2000s, and I represented my tribe, the Crow Creek Sioux tribe, in the Lewis and Clark commemorations. And I have to say that most of the American Indians who came here to see the to commemorate Lewis and Clark's journey and his encounter with my people, we were shocked to see the statues in Charlottesville that so disrespectfully portray American Indians, as well as the statues that honored the Confederate generals. So there is a statue that I think you're familiar with, the George Rogers Clark statue. I don't know if everyone here is familiar with it. It shows General, or I don't know if he was a general, but George Rogers Clark, the eldest brother of William Clark, attacking a family of American Indians. And if you look at it closely, there's a woman there. She's holding a baby in a cradle board. And she is being protected by her husband and maybe her father. They're pleading with George Rogers Clark to stop. And then meanwhile, he's reaching back for a rifle or a musket that he's being handed by one of his soldiers. And on the other side of the horse, there's a guy running up with a pistol about to surprise attack them. And the statue is called George Rogers Clark, Conqueror of the Northwest. And it celebrates, when it was made, it celebrated that, that image and that history in Charlottesville. Now, the Lewis and Clark and Sacajawea statue, I was part of the effort 10 years ago that was led by Jennifer Hoyt Tidwell, where she led an effort to wake the city of Charlottesville up and to consider having that statue removed. And that was the last time I spoke before this body. And the council wouldn't consider actually removing the statue. They gave us the option of reinterpreting it or some kind of mitigation. So reluctantly, a few of us agreed, and we got funding from the city for a plaque. And I actually found the descendants of Sacajawea, and they wrote the plaque language, and we had a big ceremony when we dedicated it. And our esteemed mayor at the time, Dave Norris, was there, and he said he hoped the city would wake up and start to see the role of women in our society, in a different way, that there would be a major shift. And I think now, 10 years later, it's one of my regrets that I didn't fight harder to have the statue removed at the time, but it just seemed like it was ahead of its time. And now I think, and I applaud everyone who's taken action to make this an issue again, and I'm appealing to the council to consider moving it, and I understand the Lewis and Clark Exploratory Center is willing to take it, where it can be better interpreted and placed in context, because this statue it's even though we put a plaque up, it's still offensive. It's demeaning, and it's not the way I want my relatives, the women in my family, portrayed. It's just something that I think we can agree that it's not a good portrayal of women or of Native Americans. And I also want to acknowledge some other people in the room. Dr. Andrea Douglas, one of the chairs of the UVA Commission on Segregation, and Vice Provost Nelson is here. He's on that commission. I think Mayor Walker, you may be on that commission too.
I'm on it, but I haven't been.
And I wanted to applaud, because there's an effort right now to bring Charlottesville's portrayal and University of Virginia's portrayal of history to be more accurate in regards to Native Americans. So we're trying to build a center, we're trying to raise consciousness, but I wanted to applaud the actions recently of the commission where they've commissioned some kind of statement about the George Rogers Clark statue. So I thank you, Dr. Douglas, and all the other commissioners. But I think in our campaign to bring American Indians and women and people and African Americans into the interpretation of history in this town, I think the commissions, they also need to bring in more American Indians into the commission itself, because I think we're not going to be happy with just another statement about a statue. We want action. We want the city to grow and reflect and reinterpret, but also teach and demonstrate for the future what is the proper way to enshrine our legacies for the future.
Thank you.
So that's I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll say, since the first meeting that I had as a council member last year, that I asked, that the statue be removed. That is the conversation that I've had with staff. Councilor Galvin and I were in that initial meeting together. And I think it's very important to understand, I think that article was in the Hook. Mr. Norris, is that the case? Where they did the ceremony and put the plaque on. And earlier today, we received an email that said, the statue is important historically, artistically, and culturally. While some see Sacagawea's position as demeaning, I, for one, always saw it as connected to her incomparable role. She knew where they were going and had the skills to follow the tracking. And this was a white, middle-aged woman in town, and it's often, so we have to make sure that, and this is, the work, we are doing in terms of race since 2017 too. Oftentimes we don't want to listen to the individuals who were affected, and we want to listen to the individuals who, again, we're back to that, perceived power. And I think it's very important that we understand that this is on the agenda tonight, right? I can't even remember now. But it's important that I know we have heard back that it'll change the plan, but that's the intent, for it to change the plan for West Main Street. So I support the statue being removed, but I support every statue we've been discussing to be removed. So. All right. Any other comments? All right, so 8:45.